Hi, this is Damon Pistolka, host of The Faces of Business, where I talk with interesting people, sharing life and business experiences to entertain, engage, build community, and provide information to help others succeed. If you're interested in learning more about one of our guests or how we are helping business owners generate wealth and build businesses they can sell or succeed at Exit Your Way, you can find more information on our website, exityourway.com, or by contacting me directly, Damon at exityourway.com. I hope you enjoy the show. All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am so excited today for our guest because we have Devin Miller here from Miller IP Law. Devin, thanks for being here today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm definitely excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we got to talking. We're a minute or so behind. We got to talking, and we're covering some stuff we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be a lot of fun. But Devin, we always start off by understanding a little bit more about our guests and the background and how you got where you are today. So, could you share a little bit of that with us?
Oh yeah, that's a story in and of itself. So I'll try to give the condensed version so that doesn't take up the whole podcast. So, I would say my theme throughout vast majority of my life, at least since high school, college time frame, has always been a love of startups and small businesses and entrepreneurship. And so I went off just as a background on education, I ended up getting 4 degrees, which my wife always jokes is 3 degrees too many. But I went off to undergraduate and got a electrical engineering degree as well as a Mandarin Chinese degree. And then when I went off to graduate school, I ended up going and doing an MBA as well as a law degree. And really the reason was because I got done with undergraduate, main focus was on electrical engineering. And I said, hey, I like electrical engineering, but I don't want to be an electrical engineer in the sense that I didn't want to, typical electrical engineer, you're a small cog in a big wheel. You're working on a project for a long period of time, and you don't really get to have any say in the project until the end of your career. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So with that, I kind of had 2 paths I could take. One was either entrepreneurship and business, or the other was I also found intellectual property on the law side to be interesting. So rather than pick one or the other, I just went straight down the middle, did both, got the MBA, got the law degree, started a business, or did a startup while I was in the law school and MBA school, also worked as an attorney, and really been chasing both of those ever since, and always pushing my career to where it allows me to do both at the same time. So that's about as quick as an introduction as I could reasonably do.
4 degrees. There we go. I had a friend of mine when I went to school. He got a mechanical engineering degree, but then got his law degree and was in patent law after that. And he really enjoyed it because he thought that having a bit of technical background, you could kind of understand these patents a bit better and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the interesting, so in order to even be a patent attorney, you have to have a technical undergraduate. So when you go into patent law, you get take an extra bar exam. So typical attorney, you go to law school, You graduate, you take a state bar exam, and you go practice in that state. With patent law, in order to be a patent attorney, you have to take a second bar exam, which I hated worse than the actual bar exam. It was less fun. And so in order to even qualify or to sit for that patent bar, you have to be you have to have a technical undergraduate. So engineering, mechanical, electrical, chemical, computer, some math, some or physics and that, but you have to have, so anytime you meet a patent attorney, they're always going to have a technical undergraduate because basically the patent office is saying you have to have that in order to understand the technology well enough to represent clients.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I didn't realize that. I want to say hello to, we've got Inger here today, and she said, good evening to Devin and I. And then she also said 4 degrees. I know. Woo. Woo. We got Kazi here today. All right. Thanks, Kazi. So 4 degrees. What, and you said love of startups. You started up somewhat while you're in college yet. So what really draws you into startups?
Yeah, I mean, and that's even why I have my own law firm now. So I worked for a big law for a period of time, for about six years, worked for big law firms, huge corporations. And really, I like startups because at the end of the day, you get to captain your own ship. So you get to make the decisions. It's up to you. You either sink or swim by your own skill sets, and you also get to make the decision. So you get to own up to them. I mean, now that's bad if you make bad decisions and it goes under, but at least you get to have that freedom and that ability to say, hey, this is, for me, it was, as an example, in the legal field, was I don't know if I understand or agree with how everything is set up and done. Sometimes I think it should be done differently or done and with a different perspective. And so if I'm at a large law firm, you have a lot of partners, you have a lot of people that have say, decision by committee, everything moves slow, and that just doesn't fit with my personality. And so whether it's the legal side or whether it's the other startups I've been a part of, I just like to be able to say, hey, I have a good idea. I want to be able to implement it. And I don't want to have to go through a lot of chains of command, and I have to go through decision by committee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. It is. Yeah. With your experience in the bigger firms and bigger corporations, that is a big deal. Compared to, like you said, a little piece, a little cog in a big wheel, or compared to what you said, but it's, so true. So true. That is one of them. Oh, we got Matt Goosey here today. He said he's got 3 patents, but hackers should have them for the best team. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, Matt's a Wisconsin guy, if you can't tell. And we'll just excuse him for that.
Hey, everybody's got to have a team they root for.
Yeah, they do. That's for sure. So when we're talk a little bit more about this. I mean, you've got some deep roots where you're at. I think this is cool too. So tell us a little bit about the area where you're at. And
so I'll claim the area where I'm at as a place I grew up. So technically where I have our office right now is about 1 city over. It's still really close, but where I grew up was in a smaller town. It was a farming community. It's called Morgan, Utah. Population probably, at least when I grew, it's growing way too fast now, but when I grew up it was 2,000 or 3,000, somewhere around there. Now we're by big cities. I'm not way out in the booties, but it was a small farming community. But so my family has roots honestly to the foundation or founding of that community. So you go back to about the 1850s, and you had some of my ancestors that founded the community, started it, and actually started as just a sawmill where they got it started, and they and grew from there, and then it grew into a farming community. But I grew up really kind of doing, I wouldn't say myself as a farmer, because farmers have to work a lot harder than I do. But I grew up on a farm where I was always helping my grandpa, whether it was haul hay, herd the cows, move everything around, shovel all of the waste products of the animals and everything else.
Plenty of that.
And so it gave me an appreciation both for people that work hard as well as to get a good work ethic. And so while I didn't keep on with the farming tradition as much, it was one where it kind of cemented it, where I had generations of farmers that worked hard and learned those lessons that got passed down to me. And it's one where now I try, and even though I don't do as much farming, I try and pass that down to my kids as well, and have that same, or give them some of those same opportunities.
Yeah, we were talking about that. So you've got 4 kids. You said their ages 7 to 12, and you are, and we're going to get into Miller IP law and talking about that. But talk about this. You're launching a food truck with your kids.
I am. So, and that's what everybody's like, attorney doing a food truck. How does that? It has nothing to do with the legal.
Awesome.
Although I did file a trademark for the name of the business, so technically I did tie it back into intellectual property. But no, I have 4 kids, as you mentioned. Oldest is my son, who's 12. Youngest is my daughter, who is 7, and 3 daughters, 1 son. And I was always looking. So I wish I'd had more entrepreneurial opportunities as growing up. Now, worked on a farm, great experience, but I never really had an ability to start my own business or to be involved with it to a young age until really I got up to college and even graduate school. And I wanted my kids to have an opportunity to do that. Now, they're not going to be an attorney, and while they do help me out with some projects here in the office and help to be some of the cleaning crew and that, they really haven't had an opportunity to do anything entrepreneurial. So I was kind of always figuring out what could that be. And I landed on, of all things, a food truck. And I thought, hey, that'd be fun. They would get to interact with people. So they get to learn how to communicate, how to talk, get to work hard, figure out new ideas and everything else. And so I started a food truck. It's called the Bear Den. And it is one where, man, it's taken way longer than I anticipated it would. All of the government bureaucracy slows down everything. But we're getting ready to launch it here probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And so our idea is basically during the winter, we're going to do build your own hot chocolate. So you get to choose a flavor, you get to choose the toppings, you get to choose everything. And it's kind of a build your own hot chocolate bar. And then in the summer, we're going to flip that and we're doing build your own popcorn. So they get a popcorn in the summer, hot chocolate in the winter, and then there'll be a few things. And so then my kids have been there all along the way. We started out converting an old Airstream 1972 Airstream over into a food truck. So we did that. We actually customized it, cut out part of the wall so that people could come up to it. They got to help out with that. They got to help out with the decorations. They got to help out with hanging the shelves and everything else. So it's been a fun opportunity. I don't know if we'll make exorbitant amounts of money, but I think it'll be a fun opportunity for one, them to work with that, and two, for them to get that kind of entrepreneurial experience at a younger age.
Yeah, I think that is really cool, and really cool. Something you can do with your kids. It's gonna be fun no matter what, and it has been. It sounds like so.
Already been a fun experience. So
yeah,
only more to come.
Yeah. Well, now let's move forward from that fun stuff to the fun stuff about Miller IP law and IP law in general. So, looking at your website, the one thing I was noticing about your website, and I really appreciate, is you've really taken I don't know if it's definitely different from big law firms, like their approach, because you have a DIY option, you have a consulting, a consultative kind of approach option where I could talk to you for a while, let's figure out some things. Or you can go, hey, here's a one-time fee kind of option for you to do a trademark or whatever it is in the IP. What really inspired you to go that way and give people these options like this?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, just as a quick rewind, and I'll get to your question. So I worked for large law firms, AM Law, top 100 firms. I worked for clients, Intel and Red Hat and Amazon, Ford and others. And large law firms have their way of doing it. And I basically got to a point in my career, I said, I want to focus on startups and small businesses because they're oftentimes kind of more overlooked in the marketplace. Law firms generally, while they may sometimes service them, aren't really set up for them. And so part of that approach was, if I'm going to focus on startups and small businesses, I'm going to look and see what are some of their pain points or areas that I can improve and areas that can be different. So when I set it up, I set up and it's gone through a few iterations, but I set up the law firm website to almost have a kind of an e-commerce type of a feel, which is different than most law firms. Generally, when you go to a law firm, it's going to have a pretty picture, going to tell you the name of the thing. You can go and you can find out all about the attorneys and what service they offer, and that's about it. And I said, people are generally, especially if you're, less familiar with the legal industry, you're looking for, how much is this going to cost? How long is it going to take? What are my options? Can I talk with someone right now? Is it going to cost me something to even ask a few questions? Is even figure out if I need to do anything? And so that's kind of the problems that I went about solving. So on the website, we have all of our flat fees. We do most everything, not quite everything. Sometimes you get into litigation or need some hourly work. We'll do it on an hourly basis, but by and large, everything's on flat fees. We put that all on the website. Now you can go to the website. You can actually know before you even talk to the attorney how much they're going to charge, how long it's going to take. I don't ever claim to be something that's nobody else has done out there, because it's a big world with a lot of people, but the general law firm doesn't have that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that, is always interesting is, generally when you reach out to a law firm, you get a front desk. You have to go through a secretary, and then they have to talk with you, transfer them, see if you can schedule. It usually takes like a week to get on their schedule, and you have to go in their office and everything else. And, most of the time you're wanting to talk with someone when you want to talk with someone. So I also set up the website that you can schedule. You can schedule, if you were to go on the website right now and you to go to talkwithdevin.com, which it just links to my calendar, you can schedule on my calendar for 15 minutes after the podcast ended, because as long as it's available on my calendar. Now, if I have other meetings, it will block it out. But I said, hey, why don't we have availability so people can actually connect with you and contact you same day? They can schedule something. They can do it remotely. They don't even have to come in the office, and they can just get a few questions answered and go that route. And the last one, and then I'll take a pause because I've already got or hit on a whole bunch of things.
Oh, good stuff, dude. Good stuff.
The DIY stuff. And the DIY stuff was kind of, again, out of that, working with startups and small businesses. And while we try and offer, competitive prices and a good process, even some startups and small businesses still can't afford an attorney, even at our rates. And so we said, hey, there's just really a couple options. One, you can either just try and do it all yourself, learn the legal thing, and most of the time that doesn't end up well, and it usually causes more problems than their solutions. You can go to a site like LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer, and they are better than doing it yourself, but not by a whole lot. I mean, most of the time you go through them, it's hard to understand. You don't know really what's going on. You can't, to talk with an attorney is an issue and everything else. And so I said, hey, if we're going to service startups and small businesses, why don't we offer some DIY tools where we can have any videos integrated? We can walk them through it. They have an option to connect with an attorney for an hour just to ask questions and all those things, and really try to build it so it's a alternative option to an attorney if they can't afford our fees. Now, attorney, I don't claim it to be a replacement for an attorney. Attorney, it's not going to be an entire replacement, but it offers them a better alternative option if they can't afford our fees.
Well, I think, and this is really cool. As I was looking, it's very cool what you've done, because you've followed some of the things that I read and have learned from other, pretty prominent marketers, right? Because getting your pricing on your website is one of the biggest things I think that professionals can do, just because it allows people to self-select, right? So that sounds reasonable to me, let's talk. It doesn't sound reasonable to me. Well, I can look at your DIY option and go, hey, that's where I'm at right there. Boom, hit it, go. And you give people alternatives, because many businesses, and I think the legal industry is one of them, is we're trying to service customers that are Damon's age, but most of our business is coming from people that's Devin's age, and we really need to understand that and start to cater to that and get more of a self-serve, self-select option. And I just think it's cool what you've done there. Just think it's cool.
I agree with it. And I said it's interesting because I think that the legal industry, like some other, is just so slow moving, so slow to adapt everything. They really just stuck in their ways, and really, and its irony is you could go back 200 years, and other than the advent of the computer, internet, and email, they're doing it about the same way. And so it just seems like you can either stay how it's been done for 200 years, or you can adapt and make it better and improve it. But it's going to take some work, and most of the time attorneys just don't want to put in the work, but I love it, and it makes it fun for me.
Yeah. And you said too, you built and after thinking and going through your website, you built it with an e-commerce type feeling. You're right. It does. It has the drop-down menus, the way it, you can select like you're selecting an item. It's cool. It's cool. I really thought that's worth it for us to talk about a little bit, because people will see that in your website, and you're helping people in all 50 states too, correct?
Yeah. So thing about intellectual property is it's on the federal level. So I have more clients outside of Utah, I think, now than inside of Utah. And we have them in almost, if not all 50 states, close to it. And it makes it nice. But what we also had to do is we were doing Zoom and virtual meetings and calendar schedules all before COVID hit and before that was cool.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm trying to be where the startups and the small businesses are at. And if all I say is you can come to my nicely adorned, huge high-rise office with my wood paneling, then I'm only getting a very small subsection of the clients I really could be. So that's kind of across the board. We're trying to set it up to be different.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And that's very cool. So as you're looking at it, so if we got some people that are doing their startup here, what are some of the first things that you see commonly that the startup should be thinking about / protecting when you were talking about IP law?
Yeah, and I think it's a good level set, because sometimes people don't even know what a trademark versus a patent is, and they'll come in and they'll say, "Hey, I need to protect my invention with a trademark." And I said, "Well, I'd love to protect your invention. That falls under patent." So as a quick level set, just for the audience, give them an overview as to what intellectual property is. So when you hear the term intellectual property, it's really an umbrella term. It includes a few different things underneath it. that encapsulates all of those and just is referred to as intellectual property. And generally, it refers to patents, trademarks, copyrights. So if you're to break that down, patents are going to go towards inventions, something that has a functionality, something that does something. Trademarks are going to go towards branding. So name of a company, name of a product, a catchphrase, a logo, all of those things are under branding and fall under trademarks. And copyrights are going to be for creatives. And so that can be a picture, a sculpture, a painting, a photograph, a book, a video. All of those things tend to fall under copyrights. And so probably the first thing that they should, realize is the difference between each one of those and where their business is, and realize, it's not only, hey, do we have a brand, but is the brand part of our business? In other words, sometimes people will come in and say, I need everything. And I says, okay, well, we can do everything, but it's going to be probably a bigger budget than you want. But let's whittle it down to what's the value of your business? Do you guys have a really cool product that's unique and innovative out in the marketplace, and that's what drives your value? Then go for more of a patent. If you're a service-based business and really it's all about branding, and you can, have a better reputation and get better reviews than everybody else, then you're going to look for trademarks. And so that's kind of where you start to break it down.
Okay, good. And on the patents, there are different kinds of patents, right? Because I've heard of a process patent before, or I forget, a product or design patent. So what are can you explain that a little bit so we all have a better understanding?
Yeah. So the vast majority of the time when you hear someone say a patent, they're usually referring to what's called a utility patent. So utility patent it can be a process patent. It can, they can really cover a lot of ground. It can be mechanical, electrical, software, pharmaceuticals, food, everything in between. But it's really, if break it down, utility patents are anything that does a functionality. You're wanting to cover or get coverage for that invention, for how it works, how it functions. Now, to your point, there is also what's called a design patent. And a design patent is going to be something that is non-functional, but it has a unique aesthetic nature that is different than what's out there. So I'll give you an example of a design patent. You have iPhone out there and you think, oh, well, iPhone has a whole bunch of utility patents, which they do on the antenna and on the battery and on the storage. But one of their design patents, although their design has since changed, but for a long time, was how the phone actually looks, the curved edges, the circular button in the middle, and all of those things. It was a unique design. And it was not a functional, meaning you could put the button anywhere, but how it looks really was protecting that design. And so you can do a design patent if it's more on the aesthetic nature of the product and kind of the look and feel to it. And then if it's anything to do with functionality, falls under utility patent.
That's awesome. Now, when you talk about trademarks, so patents, first of all, the utility, that's more, it's going to do something functional and do it. The design is more for an aesthetic thing that is part of your brand or critical to your brand. So trademarks, the same thing. There's different trademarks. What's this little, you see the R in there and some don't have it. And, what's that whole thing about trademarks?
Yeah, and I'll dispel the myth first. Just because it doesn't have an R or TM doesn't mean it's not trademark. It just means that they didn't put that as part of it. And so there isn't TM. Now there's benefits to putting it there, but there is no legal requirement that you have to, in order to have a trademark, put an R or TM by whatever you have registered or trademarked. And so sometimes people say, well, they don't have the R or the TM, so that's not trademarked, right? And I said, well, that's not necessarily true. Yeah. They can still have it. And the reason why you put that is it gives people a legal notice that, hey, I believe this is a trademarkable term. I believe that I have rights here. And if you violate them, I can get increased damages. So a lot of times people put it there because they want to get increased damages if they ever have to go through for infringement. But you don't have to have it. Now, with that said, there is typically three of them. Two of them are trademarks, but three that kind of get confused. So you have the TM, you have the R with the circle, and then you have the C with the circle. So the TM is basically, hey, I don't have a registered trademark, meaning I haven't gone through the federal registration process, but I think I have a brand and I have what are called some common law rights or state law rights. So you have some very limited rights. By being the first user of a brand, you do have some very limited common law rights that are associated just by the use of it. So that's kind of what a TM means. It's hey, I haven't gone after an actual federal registration, but I think I still have some trademark rights here, and so I'm putting you on notice. The R with the circle is going to be for a registered trademark. That means I have gone through the trademark process with the federal government. It's been examined and it's now a registered trademark. Now, some people put the R by mistake and they don't actually have a registered trademark, but if you're doing it right, it should be R as a registered trademark. And then sometimes people also put a C, and C is different. C is for copyrights, the C with the little circle, that's for copyrights. And so sometimes people will intermix them or get them confused. But if you're to do TM, it's, hey, I think I have a trademark, but I haven't registered it. R is for a registered trademark. C is if it's for a copyright.
Awesome. Great. I'm so glad I asked that, because I know a lot of people, you see these all over, and I didn't honestly have a clear understanding of all this. So that's great. So what are some other things that we should, I'm kind of down that road. This is so cool to learn this part of it. So when you talk about, let's just talk about a patent. I mean, timing wise, how long does it take to get a design patent? If you're ready to go, I mean, and you got to have a lot of stuff, I know, ready to go to do it, but say I've got everything ready to go. How long does it take to get it registered?
Yeah. So let's say you had all the designs in place. And that some people get mistaken. You don't have to be the world's best artistic artist and have it perfectly shown. As long as you can have a reasonable representation, us and most law firms, they'll have a draftsman that will formalize it and make it better. So as long as you can adequately get, whether it's hand sketches, drawings, notepad, PowerPoint, whatever, just be able to convey it, then you can at least have the minimum threshold. And really, when you're looking at whether it's a design patent or a utility patent, it's going to be the same standard for whether or not you're ready to get going, which is what they call in legal terms conceptual reduction to practice. Now, what does that mean in normal terms? That basically means you're able to convey the invention to a level that somebody in the industry, given enough time, money, and effort, could go and replicate it. So if it's a design, you can say, okay, I've got the design narrowed down enough that I can actually show what it is, show what the design is for the design patents. If it's for a utility patent, hey, I've got enough of the details that I could go out and explain it to an engineer as an example, and they'd be able to say, okay, yeah, I get it. Enough time and money and effort, I could go out and make that. And so with that, if you kind of hit that first initial threshold of I can explain it to that level, then you could potentially get started. Doesn't always mean you should get started, but you could get started. Now, if you're to look at kind of timing, once you file a patent application, I'll hit on both utility and design just to round out the conversation. Design patent, generally, once you file it, it's going to go through an examination process, because examiner, and both for utility and design, are going to look and see whether or not it's patentable. So design patent, once you file it, to get to the top of the queue to start with, start the examination, you're usually 9 to 12 months after the time you file it. To get all the way through the process, we'll go back and forth the examiner, define what's unique, what's patentable, what's different. On a design patent, you're typically 12 to 16 months, somewhere in there. Now, for a utility patent, it's a bit longer. So to get started with the examination for utility patent, about 12 to 18 months before you get to the top of the queue for examination. Now, there are ways, if you really want to get it started earlier, government will let you get to more towards the front of the line if you want to pay some expedited fees to have a quicker examination. But I'm just giving you the average or the normal path. Utility patent, 12 to 18 months to start the examination. You're probably saying another 6 to 9 months to get all the way through. So usually you're looking at 18, 24 months to get through the whole process on average. Now, I'm giving the averages. I've had clients that have gone through quicker, had clients that have gone through slower, but that kind of gives you a frame of mind as far as how long it typically takes.
Very good. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think, these are things that walking off the street, people don't know. You just don't understand it, and you're in it every day. So now, I've been involved before where people have talked about this before. I've got an idea. I've been working on it a while. I've sketched it up. I've done this. I may have built a prototype, but I never filed a patent. And someone else comes out and files a patent, but my stuff was done 10 years ago. And I forget what they call it, but it's something about when I'm developing something and I might have it, the idea, the concept. How do we really tell in this process if you had filed a patent on something first? Is there a way, if I was like, hey, they just patented that, but I've been working on it for 5 years. Are you just kind of out of luck because somebody else did it first?
Pretty much, yes, is the shortest answer.
Okay, I didn't know.
I'll illuminate on it because there's also some myths that come along with that. So going back just as a little bit of reciting history, before 2013, it was a bit of a different answer. So prior to 2013, and that's why you'll see myths going on and everything on our bulletin boards and chats and everything. People give all sorts of myths, and you get a lot of wrong information. But pre-2013, the U.S. was one of the few countries that was a first-to-invent country, meaning to get a patent, you had to be the first to invent. After 2013, they switched over and joined basically the rest of the world, or most of the rest of the world, in being a first-to-file system. So pre-2013, first to invent. Post-2013, first to file. And so that's where a lot of the myths come, because before 2013, if you invented it first and you could legitimately prove it, you would be able to go out and you could predate it, you could file it and be able to kind of reach back to when you started to work on it.
Yeah.
And that's where some of the myths you'll hear kind of like a poor man's patent, where all I got to do is write down my invention, sketch it all out, put it in a self-addressed envelope and never open it and make sure it's postmarked and I will be fine. That was more true. It wasn't very true, but it was more true post or pre 2013. Now after 2013, it's worth about as much. It's worth about as much as a stamp on the envelope. So
okay, good.
So that's kind of where you look at it. Is so it's really set up to be a first to file system now. So whoever is, unless you can prove like they stole your idea, they got access and they broke into your lab and they took all your designs, then you can go prove it in court. Then you have that rare exception. But for 99% of people, it's whoever files on the invention first is going to be the one that is a presumed inventor.
That's awesome. That's awesome to explain that, because I know. So, what you're really saying though is if you got something you think you should be patented, you should probably get to patenting.
Yeah.
Or at least start talking about it.
No, and I'll caveat one other thing that people oftentimes aren't aware of, that is a lot of times it becomes a catch for a lot of businesses, is you only, once you put something out in the public, so you put it on a website, you do a trade show, you pitch it to investors, you offer it for sale, any of those things, you start a time clock ticking where you have 1 year from the earliest time you put it out in the public within which you can file a patent. If you miss that window, you've now just donated your invention to the public, meaning anybody can do it and you're no longer able to patent on it. So the worst case scenario is I'll have clients that come into my office and say, hey, I started this business about 3 years ago. We started out, we were bootstrapping it. We didn't have time to do IP. We've been selling for a couple of years and we're finally like to get around to doing a patent. And I get, then I get the less than fun conversation saying, that's awesome. Your business is doing well. I'm glad it's being profitable. Unfortunately, we're not able to help you with the patent because you missed that 1 year window.
Awesome piece of information right there. So if you got something that you think you should be patenting, you need to get a patent within 1 year, or you just donated it to the public domain.
Yep, exactly.
Boom, drop that one. There's a mic drop right there, man. Wow. So this is so good. We talked about the timeline of patents. We talked about the whole, prior art, or whatever the heck they used to call it. Before 2013, it was the first to invent, but now it's first to file. And then you drop the other bomb right on there. So you got a time clock. You got 1 year if you put it out in the public to get it done, or else it's public information.
Yep.
So, wow. Then another thing I've heard of before too, and I've so many good questions are coming to mind now, dude. So provisional patent. What's a provisional patent? We used to talk about provisional patents, and people talked about what's that really do? Is it anything anymore?
Provisional patents are still alive and well, and it's still a great option. So provisional patent is a type of utility patent application. So when you get into a utility patent, you have two different types of patents you can go for. One's called a provisional patent application. The other one's called a non-provisional patent application. So a provisional patent application is a less expensive 1 year placeholder application. It gets you patent pending, gets you date of invention, and gives you a year to decide whether or not you want to pursue a full patent application or not. When you get towards the end of the year, you either decide, yep, I want to now pursue a full patent application, which is called a non-provisional, or at the end of the year, you say, hey, business didn't work out, didn't do as well in the marketplace, or I don't have the money. And if you don't pursue it any further, it's basically disappears as if you never filed it. So provisional patent applications are usually a good option a lot of times for really two scenarios. One is if you have a limited budget. So if you're saying, hey, I don't have the budget to afford a full patent application right now, but I want to protect what I'm doing as we continue to invest and develop it. Provisional patent application is the good one on the budgetary. The other one, a lot of times it fits in is, hey, we're pretty early on in our invention or product, and we'd like, we still have a lot of R&D, research and development, figuring things out, but we're on to something, and we want to make sure what we've done right up till now is still protected. Why we take the next year and we continue to develop it and iterate and finalize a product. And so that's where a lot of times provisional patent applications come in, as it gives you that 1 year placeholder to be able to either save up the budget and or to further develop it. Non-provisional is just your full patent application.
Yeah.
That is now the typical one, goes through the examination process, can issue as a full patent, but that's kind of where the provisional comes in.
Oh, so cool. Thanks. This is just awesome. It's awesome. This, clearing up some of the questions, just really giving us a great education on IP law and patents. Now let's go into trademarks a little bit, because I want to understand the trademarks. You said the TM, no registration, common law rights, and the R, it's been examined and registered. So what's it take to get a trademark? Timing? I mean, how long is it to do it? And what should we be trademarking?
Yeah, so a few good questions. I'll answer the easier one first, which is timing. Yeah. So typically, to get through the trademark process, I always give kind of, if everything goes perfectly, how long it takes, and if you have to go back and forth and argue with the trademark office what it takes. If you go straight through, you're probably 7 to 8 months from the time you file the trademark application, assuming it goes pretty smoothly and you don't really have any issues to address. If you get some rejections or you have to do some clarifications, go back and forth with the trademark office, you're usually more like 10 to 12 months, somewhere in that time frame. So generally low end 7 months, high end 12 months. And I've had some that have gone 2 years and some that have taken 4 or 5 months. And so there's always exceptions, but that's kind of the general thing. Yeah. Now, the one other thing to think about is, what can you trademark? Well, you can trademark a lot with brands. And so you can do the name of a company, name of a product, catchphrase, logo. You can do some of the weird ones. You can do smells. So the smell of Play-Doh, that's technically trademarked. You can also do, there's a smell of money that they used to pump into casinos. That's technically trademark. You can also do sounds, like if you're to do the old AOL, you got mail, that old that one was a trademarked one because everybody knew it was associated with AOL. So generally it's going to be mostly name a company, product, catchphrase, logo. But if there's something unique to your brand that, there are abilities to protect it or in a broader scope. The other one that's always fun, and I can't remember the football team, and I'm sure somebody will know or remember, but they have a red field where they paint their field red instead of the typical green, and they actually have a trademark for the red field that they're the only ones that can do it. And so those are some of the fun ones. Yeah, you can do it. Now, the second thing to consider is when you're looking at trademarks, what can you get a trademark on? So those are kind of the types of trademarks, things you can go after. What is trademarkable? It really boils down to, the nice thing is with trademarks, the standard for whether or not you infringe someone else's trademark is the same standard for whether or not you can get a trademark, which is generally the main standard is what's called confusingly similar. Confusingly similar basically means, if somebody were to look at your brand that you're going after and another brand that's already out there, would they think it's associated, tied together, same business, related, or they'd be able to tell them apart? If they think it's going to be confusingly similar, they think there's going to be the same business, then you're not able to get a trademark. If they can reasonably tell them apart, then you can get a trademark on it. So as an example, if you wanted to go start a apparel and shoe company and the spelling of your company was Nikee, you probably got a problem with Nike because your two are confusingly similar. Now, if you're the first person to come up with Adidas, different than Nike, you're both in the same products, but you have two different brands. And so that's the one thing to consider. The other one, just to consider on trademarks, is the other thing that you cannot trademark is what's called merely descriptive. Merely descriptive basically means you can't just simply go get a trademark for a common term that everybody uses to describe the product or a service. To give you a simple example, you wanted to go open up a fruit stand and you wanted to sell the world's best fruits. You wanted to sell apples. Well, let's say you named your fruit stand Apple. You can't get a trademark on it because everybody refers to the fruit apple as an apple. Vice versa, if you wanted to go start a smartphone company, you want to do consumer goods, you can name it Apple because it doesn't, it's not a common term that people use to describe a smartphone. Now, maybe everybody calls them Apple now, but you get the idea. And so those are kind of your two standards, confusingly similar, merely descriptive. Generally, if you meet those standards, most of the time you're able to get a trademark.
Yeah. Now, this is awesome. This is awesome, dude. This is just like a treasure trove of information. And I want to stop here and just tell the people that are listening now, if you just got on, go back to the beginning, because you have really laid out so much great information about patents and now trademarks, and wow, just good stuff. So, and we're getting close to time here. So I'm gonna be cognizant of your time and do this. I'm going to ask a couple more questions. So what are some of the things that you see regret from startup when they do it? And then we talked about the 1 year it's in the public domain with the patents. Now I'm assuming that's probably a kind of a common one, but what are some other ones where you see people go, oh man, I shoulda, woulda, could have done it differently?
Yeah, I think that, it goes probably right along with that, but on the trademark side, which is sometimes people will go out, they will put a ton of time, money, and effort in a brand, they'll never trademark it, and then they'll see a competitor that comes along and starting to get close to them and that, and they say, oh, I should probably go trademark that. Come to find out, the competitor's already filed a trademark on it, and now they're at a much more disadvantage. Now, there are some paths that you can still carve it out, but generally the way that works is whoever files the trademark first is in a much better position. Now, I'll walk you through just the simple example. You do have some rights. So post a patent, basically you miss a date, unless they stole the invention from you and you can prove it.
Yep.
You're just kind of out of luck. Trademarks, you do have, when I said some common law rights, give you an example. Let's say you went out and started ABC Pizza and you're going to do deep dish pizza in Chicago. So you started your business, you're doing awesome, and now you're looking to franchise. So you started, let's say, 5 years ago. And somebody came along during that 5 years and said, hey, I really like the brand ABC Pizza. So they went off to Los Angeles and started their own ABC Pizza. They were smart enough to file a trademark on it. And so now they've gone through, got the trademark, or they're going through the process. And you say, hey, wait, they just took my brand. I want to stop them. Well, you're to a large degree out of luck. The way that basically works is you can continue to use the trademark in Chicago where you're at for the current geographic location where you've been already selling your products prior to them filing a trademark. But you can never expand out of that. So you could not. So the people that just filed the trademark in Los Angeles, they basically own all the geographic areas outside of where you were at when they filed the trademark, and you own it inside. So you could keep selling in Chicago, couldn't go anywhere else. They can sell everywhere across the U.S. except for Chicago. So that's kind of one of the other things to be aware of. Is if somebody else comes along and files a trademark before you, it can significantly hamper your ability to expand or to franchise or to grow.
Huge right there. Because if you spend all that time and effort in building a brand and then find out that someone on the other side of the country already has the brand, has it registered already, and they just stopped you from expanding.
Yep.
A big deal. Wow. Great stuff. Holy heck. So much to learn about this. So, I'm floored by some of that. Well, just because you think about it, startups, you got all this other stuff to think about, and then and then something like this can come back and really bite you. So I'm going to go back through my notes because we covered so much good stuff. Well, I've got a couple things, and we're not going to go on this long because everybody's talking about AI in the legal profession and lawyers. So what's your take on how it's going to help you be a better lawyer?
Yeah, and I think some of the concern with lawyers is whether or not it's going to put them out of business, right? So everybody's, there are areas of the law that people are just saying AI is going to take over now. Yeah. I don't think it's that smart yet. I don't think it's gotten to the point that it's going to be able to infuse that level of experience, with one exception, which is you have some areas of law which attorneys have gotten used to just being a template, boilerplate. I fill in the blanks and it takes me 5 minutes and I charge them 5 hours of time.
Yep.
So I think that's the area where AI probably is going to step in first. And that kind of, or sometimes has to do with simple wills and trusts, simple business formations, simple agreements, not complex ones, but simple ones where people have relied on templates for a long period of time and the attorney just happened to know where to stick in the information. For the vast majority of the legal or legal arena, I don't think the AI is there yet. Maybe it'll get there someday. It'll get smart enough, and it will replace all the attorneys, and then everybody will be happy because they don't have to deal with attorneys anymore. But until then, I think that the main thing is it tends to be. I've seen a lot of applications in it being tools for an attorney, so to reduce their time, to cut down. Hey, I'm going to be working on this type of matter, and it typically takes me, to draft it from scratch. Or 5 hours, and I'm just making the scenario up. Yeah. Now I go out and I have some of the AI assisted tools and it cuts off an hour or two. Well, it's a benefit to the attorney because now it's taking them less time. They can either try and pocket the profit, or if they want to be competitive, they can reduce their rates or reduce the amount of time it takes them. And that's where I see a lot of it is AI tends to be a lot of good tools that people have coming up with, implementing it, that helps and assists attorneys, but hasn't gotten to the point where it probably replaces them.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Because I agree. I think that, and I think also that if you're embracing it to make you better at what you do, and you continue to stay current with that, it'll help. But you said earlier too that the legal profession is a little bit slow to move, and that's probably a lot more of the fear than anything.
No, I think so. And I think, you can either incorporate it into how you do things, incorporate it into your practice and leverage it, or you can just try and hold out as long as possible. And that's kind of the path that you can either go the Apple iTunes, hey, we're going to change the industry, or we can be the old, the compact CDs, which nobody ever uses, but we tried to hold on as long as possible. It's coming either way. And so I always look to say, how can we adapt or use it to improve it, make it better, and stay ahead of the competition? Because I think the legal industry, the people that stay behind and lag behind, are going to be the ones that are going to be ellipsed or are going to be left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Devin, I want to thank you so much for being here. And Angela just said hello, dropped in. Angela, thanks for being here today. But Devin, thanks so much, man. We're past our time already, and I wish we weren't, but got to let you go, man, and let you get on with your evening. But Devin, where can people get a hold of you? Give us your website and where people can get a hold of you.
Absolutely. So I'll give them 3 ways to get a hold of me, depending on what they want to get a hold of me for and how they want to get a hold of me. So I'll start with social media. I know the law firm has presence in all the major social media platforms. The place that I am personally the most active is on LinkedIn. I just tend to like the business, or type of approach to it. And so LinkedIn, if you want to connect up with me there, the easiest way is if you just go to meetmiller.com. That links right to my profile, makes it an easy way for you to connect up with me. So meetmiller.com. Nice. Second way is if you're saying, hey, I've got a few questions about IP, patents, trademarks, or whatever. We offer free 15-minute consultations where you can chat through it. You can get some questions answered. It's not going to answer every possible question you have within 15 minutes, but it gets you started. To schedule some time for a free strategy meeting, you just go to strategymeeting.com, and then you grab that links to my calendar. You can grab some time to chat.
Nice.
The last ways, if you just want to go and check out the website, see how we set it up, see our flat fees, check out our DIY tools, check out all the information there. We have a lot of great resources. You can just go to lawwithmiller.com and they can connect there. So as a quick review, connect with me on LinkedIn. It's meetmiller.com. Strategy meeting is at strategymeeting.com. Or for just the general law firm webpage, it's at lawwithmiller.com.
Awesome, dude. Awesome. Well, Devin, thanks so much for being here today, man. This is a great conversation, and I hope the listeners got half as much out of it as I did, because I know it's on overload. I get 3 or 4 pages of notes here. Just thanks for being here. So appreciate it.
Hey, I love being here. It was a fun conversation, and hopefully people got a few new ideas out of, or learned a little bit about the legal atmosphere out of it. So thank you for having me on.
You bet. Well, we're going to shut her down for now. I just want to thank everyone that's listened to us today, and the people that commented, Inger and Angela, and we had Near Earth Object and someone that I couldn't tell who it was, Matt. Just the Packers might be good this year. We just don't know. Kazi, and thanks for being here today. Matt, just hang out for a moment. We'll be back again next week with the Faces of Business.